Driving a classic car is one of the most raw, mechanical thrills you can experience today. No computers, no filters, just pure connection between you, the engine, and the road. But let's be honest, driving a classic in 2025 isn't all sunshine and chrome bumpers. Modern traffic, today's fuel, safety issues, and repair headaches can turn that dream ride into a reality check fast. So today, we're breaking down 8 things that are actually tough about driving a classic car today. The stuff nobody tells you before you buy one. You're always listening for new noises. Classic cars talk constantly. Some noises are harmless, but others mean trouble. And you learn to tell the difference, sometimes the hard way. A clunk from the rear suspension might be a worn bushing. A rattle in the dash could be a loose screw from 1983. A ticking sound under the hood might be a lifter that needs adjusting. On something like a 1990 Jeep Cherokee, a whining fuel pump is a common warning sign that failure is incoming. On a 1987 Fox Body Mustang, belt squeal often hints at alignment or tension issues. Even when nothing is technically wrong, classic cars just make more noise because insulation was worse, rubber ages, and mechanical components weren't designed for silence. You constantly monitor the gauges, listen for new sounds, and sniff for unusual smells. It's part of the charm, but it also means you never fully relax behind the wheel. Many owners carry emergency toolkits because old cars can surprise you. A stuck choke, a loose battery terminal, or a cracked hose can turn a simple drive into a roadside repair session. Insurance costs and rules aren't always simple. Insurance for a classic car isn't always straightforward, especially when the car has high replacement costs or collectible value. Take the 1991 Acura NSX as an example. A typical full coverage policy comes in at around $300 per month, as per compare.com. which works out to roughly $3,600 a year. That's not a small number, and it's before you factor in things like driving history, storage situation, or zip code. Collector insurance can sometimes be cheaper, but it usually comes with restrictions. Many policies limit mileage, require garage storage, or ban daily driving entirely. If you want the freedom to use your classic car whenever you like, you often have to move to a standard policy, which costs more. The NSX also shows how value affects premiums. A clean 1991 model is now valued well above $100,000, which pushes comprehensive and collision rates higher because repairs and parts are expensive. Even something like a simple bumper repair can cost thousands because OEM components are rare and aftermarket options are limited. Modern drivers don't always understand your pace. This might be the most frustrating part of driving a classic car today. Other drivers don't always give you space, and many expect you to accelerate and brake like a modern SUV. Try cruising in a 1967 Pontiac Firebird with drum brakes and see how tailgaters behave. They'll sit inches from your bumper because they assume you can stop like a modern sedan. At night, old headlights make visibility tougher, and new LED units from other cars feel like they're burning holes in your retinas. Crosswinds affect older cars more because aerodynamics were primitive. A 1980 Jeep CJ7 wanders at highway speeds, and people passing at 80 miles per hour don't realize it's not easy for you to hold lane position. Parking lots bring their own challenges. Doors on classic cars are wide, paint is fragile, and replacement panels aren't cheap. You start parking far away to avoid dings, but people still squeeze next to you for some reason. Modern driving habits have changed, and not always for the better. Classic cars move at their own rhythm, and the world rarely slows down to match it. Finding replacement parts can feel like a treasure hunt. One of the toughest things about living with a classic car today is sourcing parts. If you're driving something common, like a late 90s Ford Mustang or an early 2000s Honda Civic, there's still decent aftermarket support. But once you go older or pick something a little obscure, things get tricky pretty quickly. As an example, take a peek at RepairPal's parts estimates for older models, and you'll see how quickly things go pear-shaped. A 1995 BMW 325i, which is now a genuine classic car at 30 years old, shows a fuel pump replacement cost ranging from $621 to $1,190 for parts and labor. That's for something as basic as a fuel pump. If you're dealing with less common machinery, like a 1987 Mercedes 560 SL, a power steering pump replacement can jump to $1,900 to $2,100 depending on availability. If you're unlucky enough to need body panels, the prices climb even higher. Something as simple as a chrome bumper for a 1970s American sedan can cost more than $1,000, and that's if you're lucky enough to find one that isn't dented or deeply pitted. Reproduction panels exist for many muscle cars, but not all reproductions are equal. Fitment issues, rough finishing, and thin metal aren't uncommon. Time pardons no machine. Owners of niche or low production models often end up scavenging through junkyards, combing Facebook groups, or messaging strangers on forums. You may find yourself waiting weeks for a part to arrive from halfway across the country, only to realize it's not the right version because your classic car went through a mid-year revision that nobody documented clearly. Even simple wear items get complicated. A radiator for a 1991 Toyota MR2 can spike above $300, and good luck finding OEM hoses that still exist. Rubber deteriorates, plastic becomes brittle, and metal corrodes after decades. Keeping a classic car healthy becomes a balancing act of mechanical knowledge and detective work, and while some people enjoy the challenge, it's undeniably tough when you're just trying to get back on the road. Modern traffic isn't kind to old machines. Classic cars were built for a slower world. Cities had less congestion, highway speeds were lower, and drivers were more patient because nobody expected instant acceleration or one-finger steering. But today's traffic requires relatively quick responses, tight gaps, and constant braking, and most classic cars simply weren't designed for that. Carbureted engines suffer in stop-and-go conditions. A 1969 Dodge Dart might be perfectly happy cruising at 55 miles an hour, but leave it idling in a 45-minute jam and the cooling system starts struggling. Radiators clog, fan clutches weaken, and carburetors stumble when heat builds up. You can upgrade components, but that means modifying a classic car, and that's not something not everyone wants to do. Slow and easy does it. Manual transmissions wear rapidly in slow traffic, especially with heavy old-school clutches. As per some reports, classics like the 1990 Mazda Miata still handle this reasonably well, but older V8 sedans or European classics with tall gearing weren't built for constant first-gear crawling. Overheating, vapor lock, and brake fade become real concerns. Even lane changes feel different. Modern cars accelerate quickly and cleanly, while many classic cars have slower throttle response. Steering ratios are wider, meaning more turns lock to lock. A simple merge onto a modern freeway can feel chaotic when everyone else is doing 70 miles per hour and your classic car takes a beat to build speed. Safety tech is basically non-existent. The biggest wake-up call for anyone switching from a modern daily to a classic car is how basic safety used to be. Forget traction control, stability control, brake assist, or blind spot monitoring. Many classic cars don't even have ABS. Some don't have airbags. A few older sports cars have seatbelts that wrap around your waist like an early airline strap. Take a popular classic like the 1988 Chevrolet Corvette C4. It was a performance hero in its day, but its safety systems were primitive compared to even the cheapest modern compact. Crumple zones were minimal, and side impact protection was barely present. Braking distances were far longer than what we'd consider acceptable today. If you jump into something even older, like a 1972 Volkswagen Beetle, you get thin doors, minimal crash protection, and braking performance that requires constant attention. None of this means you can't drive a classic car safely, but it does mean you need to change your mindset. Fuel efficiency is a whole different story. Classic cars were born in an era when fuel prices were lower and efficiency wasn't a major selling point. Even compact classics struggle with MPG today. A 1994 Ford Bronco might return around 12 to 14 MPG if you're lucky, and that's with gentle driving. Something like a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS396 would be thrilled to hit 10 MPG on a good, slow day. Combine that with today's fuel prices and weekend cruising stops being cheap fun quickly. A long Sunday drive in your classic car can easily eat up $60 to $100 in gas. Highway driving doesn't always help because carburetors often run richer at steady speeds. Premium fuel requirements add more cost. Many classic engines knock if they're fed regular 87 octane. Some owners try octane boosters, but that's another expense stacked on top of everything else. Smaller engines aren't immune either. A 1985 Toyota Celica Supra might look efficient, but its straight six is thirsty by modern standards and, as per most reports, returns well under 20 mpg. Classic engines weren't optimized for emissions or frugality, so they burn more fuel than drivers today expect. Cold starts and weather can test your patience. Weather affects classic cars in ways younger drivers might find surprising. Carburetors hate cold mornings, ignition systems mess with humidity, and older seals don't appreciate sudden temperature swings. Even well-tuned classic cars have personalities that change with the weather. On a chilly morning, something like a 1989 Toyota pickup with its carbureted four-cylinder needs a couple of pumps, a gentle crank, and a bit of finesse to stay running until it warms up. On a damp day, an older British classic like an MG Midget might misfire or stumble until the ignition dries out. Heating and AC systems aren't dependable either. Early AC systems weren't built for heat like today, and older compressors wear out. Restoring them isn't cheap, and refrigerant conversions add another layer of complexity. A long drive in summer traffic inside a classic car often means sweating more than driving.